let's start with what exactly retirement is. So retirement is where it's a situation where you're able to be work optional. You don't have to work because you're not forced to. You choose if you want to work. If you want to go to work, you can. In a way, I mean, just a summary of this is the alarm clock is optional. So that means that you may not have an alarm clock every morning. You wake up whenever you want to. I've actually noticed that myself. I used to have to go to work and I'd have to wake up at a specific time, and I'd be forced to do that no matter what. When I left my job, I started doing the content creation. I'm obviously not work optional, not retired yet, but I think this is a path to retirement where now I get to choose when I wake up. I get to choose when I go to sleep. I get to choose everything in my life. I get to choose how productive I am during the day, and I think that's the greatest way to be. And for at least for me, I've enjoyed that a lot. The second thing that you have to have for retirement is you have to have enough money to cover your expenses. I mean, if you're going into a permanent retirement, you have to have money to cover your expenses forever. But there's a concept of mini vacations. There's a guy on X who really got me to start thinking about it, where during while you're working, you're not work optional at this point. You're not retired. You're going on vacations and you're spending your time. You're enjoying your life, and that's something that a lot of Bitcoiners I think forget about. They focus a lot more on working so that they can get more Bitcoin. They focus on cutting their expenses so that they can get more Bitcoin, but they don't think about how to enjoy their lives. I think that's key. If you're not enjoying your life, then what's the point, right? You're just going to retirement, you're stopping working, but what about the journey to get to that point? So the third thing that's really important. So the first thing is work optionality. You want to choose whether you go to work or not. Thing is you have to have enough money to cover your expenses forever. The third thing is freedom. So that's the vacations part. You want freedom of time and location. You want to be where you want, when you want. Your time belongs to you rather than you having to go to an employer and your employer chooses what your schedule looks like. I hate that aspect of working a typical job. And I mean, of course, it works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. But I think the ultimate goal is to be free, and that's what retirement is to me.
I Since I started doing this, I could not go back to like
Yeah.
having a normal work schedule, which is weird because I usually do work in a normal schedule. So like I usually like start working around like 9, 10 a.m. and usually stop working at like 6, 7, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, depends on the day. But like even though I usually do the same schedule that I would have as a like normal employee, I love not having an alarm clock, and it's like since a little while, my fiance is also focused on working for herself, and so we actually stand up now without an alarm clock. It's
Amazing.
like a thing since now 2 weeks, and now 2 months, and it's such an difference in lifestyle. Even though
Amazing.
wake up right around the same time we did before, also it like didn't really change, but just the feeling is better. So maybe retirement is the wrong word because it assumes that we just stop working. Like it assumes like you just lay on the beach and do nothing, which is
Yeah.
fine. I couldn't do it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
me
too
neither.
active for that. But maybe it's rather than retirement, it is financial independence, the right word for it.
I like that. So financial independence is different from retirement. So financial independence is more like you can choose to work if you want. You don't have to. And that's why I like the word work optionality, work optional. I want to become work optional. I don't want to retire. I want to choose whether I work or not. So like let's say for example, the stuff that we're doing, we can keep doing this literally forever. Like you can have guests on your podcast when you're 80, right? And you can keep doing that whenever you want to forever. Like
I
if you
probably
choose
will.
to. That's exactly it, right? And maybe you won't talk about Bitcoin at that point. Maybe you'll talk about other things, right? And I think that's great. I think that's exactly what we want. We want to be able to transition over time into the things that we love doing. The second question that you asked was um, how STRC changed things. So the way that I look at it, Bitcoin is a long-term asset, and this is the kind of way that I structure my own portfolio. Bitcoin is the long-term asset. MSTR is the very, very, very long-term asset, and that's partially what you'd want to put your money into. But the short term was the hard part because with Bitcoin, you don't know what's going to do in the next 4 years. We have no idea, right? We can guess, For all we know, maybe it'll have diminishing returns, maybe it'll have accelerating returns. I personally think it'll accelerate, but we have no idea what it'll do other than 4 years out. So you can't really put your rent money into it, right? And what we want is an asset that fills that short term gap. So we want something that's going to cover you for 0 to 4 months, or sorry, 0 to 4 years. Um, so the way that I've thought about this a lot, I've really tried to put time into this, and the way the solution that I've come up to is 0 to 3 months. You probably want cash, just because it's easily accessible. It's the easiest to access. Not cash and not physical cash, but like let's say for example you have it in a checking account or a high yield savings account. That's up to you. The second thing you'd want is 3 months to 4 years, or maybe a little bit less. Let's say 3 months to 2 years. You'd want STRC or SATA, whatever it is, whatever the cash flowing asset is, because they have a little bit more risk. uh, Obviously, if Bitcoin falls, they're probably going to fall as well. But the good thing is that both of them are backed by a cash reserve that you know you'll get in the short term. So in the short term, your savings will be protected, but we have no idea what's going to happen to STRC, let's say 5, 10 years from now. Whereas in the short term, let's say STRC has a year and a half of cash set aside, we know that STRC will probably continue to survive over the next year and a half. And then over time, who knows how the companies will change those products? Maybe they'll buy them back or something. I don't know. I don't know what they'll do, but at some point it could change. And that's the thing that you want to protect yourself against. So short term, you want cash, very, very short term, you want cash, 0 to 3 months. Then 3 months to 4 years, you'd probably want something like STRC. 4 years and beyond, you'd probably want Bitcoin. And then I'd say maybe 10 years and beyond, put 10% of your portfolio into MSTR if you want to. But I mean, you can just stick to Bitcoin only, and that's perfectly fine. But the goal here is to make sure that your liabilities are matching your time horizon for your investments, because if they're not matching, then you're going to be in trouble. That's exactly what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. So Silicon Valley Bank had liabilities that were short term, but their assets were long term, and because of that, they went bankrupt because the long term assets weren't valued at the same price as what they bought them at. And eventually, those assets would probably go back to the value that they expected, but that would have taken some time, and that's a problem. So matching the time horizons is the key. Let's say, for example, if you have to buy a car and it's a year from now, you probably wouldn't want to save cash because you aren't getting any interest on it. You probably wouldn't want to buy Bitcoin because you don't know what it'll do in the next 6 months to a year. You probably wouldn't want to get MSTR because MSTR is even more volatile than Bitcoin. In that case, you'd probably want something that can give you some interest. And there are ways to actually calculate exactly how much should I put into STRC, including the interest, to get to, let's say, $50,000. And you can do these calculations based on the interest that you're getting, based on the 11% interest that you're getting, and you can see exactly how much you need to put into STRC in order to get to the balance that you need.
I'm I love that, and I also love your framework of thinking in time. The one question I have is, how do you actually go ahead and allocate so like money that I need within the next 3 months, which a lot of people will say, yeah, I don't need any money in the next 3 months. Are you calculating for potential income loss also? Like if someone is like working and they have like a savings quote of like $500 that they get each month, do they just have zero in the 0 to 3 months if they don't need any money in the next 3 months?
Yeah, so the way that I would do it is you have to calculate your income and your expenses. You have to calculate what your expenses are like every single month. If they're fluctuating, then you might want a bigger emergency fund. If your income is fluctuating, you might want a bigger emergency fund. Um, your emergency fund is just a savings, like a cash pile. That's it. It's like the way that I look at it, it's your expenses that are going to happen no matter what. Right, so let's say you have to pay rent. You have to pay rent no matter what. You have to pay your car payment no matter what. You have to pay for gas no matter what. You have to pay for food no matter what. So those non-negotiable expenses, you would add them up for a month, and then you'd see how much it would cost you for that month, and you'd multiply it by 3. Sometimes people like to have 6 months of cash set aside. Some people like to have a year of cash set aside to 12 months, depending on what you want, depending on your income as well. Let's say your income is more volatile. Let's say, for example, for both of us, our income is extremely volatile, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. In our case, maybe we'd want a bigger emergency fund because we don't know what our income will be next month. Like, for all we know, I don't know if my income will cover my expenses next month. So my savings will have to do to cover my expenses. And I think that's perfectly fine. It's just different strategies for different people. So what I would say is, um, if you only have, like, let's say for example, you don't have anything coming up. So I'll give you my example. I don't own any STRC because I don't need it. I don't have any short term expenses that I need to save. Let's say I don't have an expense coming up in 2 years that I need to save for. So what I've done is my wife and I, we've done is we've built an emergency fund of just cash, and we just use that whenever we need to. We haven't really had to dip into it. It's just sitting there, and it's losing value to inflation. But in the situation that we do have to use it, it's there, and that's the key. I'm okay with losing value to inflation rather than having to sell my Bitcoin if times get really difficult. If I have to sell my Bitcoin and Bitcoin's down like 90%, I mean, that's your entire stack, right? You're losing your entire stack just from one mistake. Whereas I'm okay with dealing with the inflation risk. The loss from inflation is worth it to me because I know that that money is there. I need it. I have certainty.
Okay, so like emergency fund is always uh, the thinking, if your income completely goes away, how many months do you can survive from just the cash? So like if you have, let's say 2K of expenses per month, and even if you make what's, let's say 4K a month, that does not matter. Emergency fund only looks at the expenses, adds up those, like let's say 3 months you want to build up. So you need 6K in US dollar, euro, whatever your denomination is, in that emergency fund in case something goes wrong. Hence the name emergency fund, I guess.
That's exactly it. And then what the thing, so there's also other nuances, right? Like, let's say, for example, you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. For example, our income streams could dry up, right? And the way that I think of it is, how long would it take for me to build another business that makes 2K a month? So let's say, for example, for me, if it takes 6 months, then I'll have to have 6 months worth of cash to basically give me that runway so that I don't have to rush into something. I don't have to go back to a job. I don't have to do something I don't want to. I don't have to scam my audience to make ends meet. That cash is going to cover me in case my businesses stop creating cash. And I think that works really well. It gives you optionality. It gives you a chance to, let's say, for example, let's say you have a emergency fund and Bitcoin drops 80%. If you want to, best case scenario, you have that cash set aside, you're still working, you're still getting your cash flow, your business is doing better than ever, you can use that cash to just buy Bitcoin. And I think that works really well. And then you can just replenish the cash over time.
Now that I understand it, I think most people, it's pretty easy to understand. But I think Bitcoin has had, I feel like, and maybe it's just because I thought about that since a very long time. My thinking was, I think, till November or last year or something like that, December, when I got crushed in the, in the market more and more. My thinking was like, I I will make it somehow. I will work very hard to always have income, and it will actually motivate me even harder if I don't have emergency funds to work even harder. And so I'll just put everything in Bitcoin. Now I changed that thinking because I saw the value of having cash. Even if you don't need it, it's very nice if Bitcoin goes down 50% and you can stack a little bit extra in your stack. But now here comes the
Yeah.
problem. Bitcoiners know what Bitcoin will do, and so having the discipline, knowing knowing what you know about fiat, to keep that fiat emergency fund and not touch it. I mean, if you, let's say, have 10 grand in an emergency fund, that's a lot of money if you put it in Bitcoin and just wait 10 years. That's a lot of, um, the fear of missing out really grows with your knowledge about Bitcoin. But it's very important that you still be disciplined and have your emergency fund. How do you deal with the logic side of it? I think everyone understands it, but like, how do you deal with the emotional side of like having the fear of not using that emergency fund for Bitcoin?
I mean, the way that I look at it, it's a choice, right? If you do it, then the way that I look at it, I mean, it's all logic, right? I try to avoid I still feel like, oh, I should just buy Bitcoin. I don't want to. Why do I need this cash? Why do even though I've put in the time to understand this, keep in mind that the average person knows nothing about this. The average person, when you bring this up, you're like, hey, you should have an emergency fund. They're like, what's an emergency fund? They have no idea. So for me, it's still a little difficult just getting to that point and holding on to the cash. But the way that I look at it, if you have cash, you can take more risks, right? So let's say if you don't have cash, there was this really great video that I saw. It was just a short, and the guy was saying how if you have 0 months of cash, you have to do whatever your boss tells you to do, no matter what it is. They tell you to jump, you say how high, and you're gonna do it. You have to. Whereas if you have 3 months of cash, you have a little bit more freedom. And if somebody messes with you, maybe you don't have to do exactly what they say. Then you have 6 months of cash and you have a little bit more freedom. You have 9 months of cash, you have a little bit more freedom. But then the thing that I like about risk is that if you have some cash set aside, you can take bigger risks than somebody who has no cash. Because think about it. Let's say if you there's the example of, let's say, like growing fruits and vegetables. If you plant a seed, it's not going to give you the result right away, right? And you have to wait. You have to wait 3 months, maybe 2 months, whatever it is. I was looking at some seeds. It said 55 to 85 days to fruits or whatever. That's when they start bearing fruit, right? You have to wait that time, and that's the time that you have to get through before you can get your results. So, for example, I'm doing something, a cohort, like a group, with a group of people who want to learn about Bitcoin. I'm teaching them, going step by step through them, but it took some time to build it. Number one, it took a long time to build it. It took like 2 months to build the curriculum, and then it took a month to find people who want to join it. Right, so that's 3 months right there that I didn't get paid in, and I was working and I was putting in my time, right? Everything requires that. But having an emergency fund got me through that. And then having my other income streams got me through that. Not everybody has multiple income streams. Not everybody has an emergency fund. And in that case, if they don't have an emergency fund, how do you work on something on the side while not getting paid? You can't. You're not going to starve yourself to death. You're not going to go homeless.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.